Right after my parents' wedding, my uncle was murdered in his own home. He was stabbed multiple times all over his arms and chest. It was a horrible tragedy for the family. So my twin sisters and I never got to meet him in person, as I, being the oldest brother, was born a year after the incident. We had never seen any pictures of him, only stories of his character and brother relationship with my father. This is all necessary for what happened next. At the time, my dad and mom were home builders for newer suburbs. There was a house that was halfway built and still missing the stairs to the basement. The whole family was there, as a babysitter was not available for us kids at ages 7 and 5. It had gotten dark at this point, so my parents are picking up tools. My mom is hiding us 3 kids to make sure we don't fall or go missing. For some reason, my mom loses grip with my sister, and she falls into the basement. For a few seconds, my parents are screaming while grabbing a ladder to get down. Suddenly, we hear a giggle coming from the basement. It was my sister. My dad brings her up to find no bruises, no scratches, only a few red spots on her face. When asked if she was okay, she says, "Uncle caught me." A few months later, my siblings are going through my grandmother's scrapbook. We happen to flip through a picture with my uncle and father in it. It's a picture of them during my parents' wedding reception. My sister points at the picture and shouts, "Uncle! Uncle!" Grandma then asks her, "Do you know him?" Sister replies, "I see him too." The last incident was a few weeks after. My mom goes outside to see my sister crying. Mom says, "Honey, what's wrong?" To which my sister says, "Why is Uncle in so much pain?" "What do you mean?" She goes on, "He has red marks all over his arms and chest. He keeps saying that the bald man hurt him." At this point, my mom gets livid. She shouts into the air to Uncle that he needs to stop making my sister cry. And after that incident, my sister doesn't see him anymore. But what's even crazier is when the murder trial finally happened years later. They managed to catch the murderer, and the whole family is there to watch him enter the courtroom. And he does, bald head and all. My mom grew up in a house that was a possible final stop on the Underground Railroad. Living there, she experienced many moments of things moving, going missing, and sounds that cannot be described. One night, she's watching TV and decides to head off to bed. She turns the TV off and starts walking. 10 steps in, the TV cuts back on, in static. She heads back and turns it off. Takes 10 steps just to hear the TV cut back on. She heads to bed and listens to the TV static. The TV then starts cutting on, then off, with the static getting louder. Finally, she yells to the top of her lungs for the TV to quit it. Right after she did, the TV cut off. As the years went on, my grandparents would find an underground cellar on the property. Inside, they found skeletons and clothes in heaps on the floor. They also found scratch marks on the inside cellar doors, like the people inside were trying to get out. So now the questions remain. Were the skeletons slaves? If so, were they forgotten? Or were they purposefully left there? There was a house in Winston-Salem my mom and I were painting. The house was very old and needed lots of repairs. When we got there, the house was completely abandoned. So the first 2 weeks, only my mother went there and was by herself the whole time. While painting, my mom kept hearing kids playing and giggling outside. when she would look out, there would be nobody out there. I didn't think of anything of it until I went with her on week 3. She went into the kitchen on the other side of the house, and I was at the end of a hallway. Suddenly a lady's voice called out and said something like, "Where are you?" I paused for a second, because it came from the hallway right outside the door I was sitting by. So then I replied back, but heard no response. No one else was there. So then after looking around, I found my mother outside in the backyard. When I was outside of the house talking to my mom, something grabbed my shorts and tugged. I asked the Ouija board about it years later, and it responded. It was a mom and her 2 kids forever searching for each other. The board then told me the kid was tugging on my clothes, trying to ask me where his mom was. Where to begin? I had moved down to North Carolina from Michigan at 12, and the difference in green from the 2 states was huge. I really enjoyed the creeks, trees, and long rolling hills I didn't have the luxury back up north. Because of this, I would often enjoy taking walks through my neighborhood. I could go on about my views about each walk, but let's skip to the part that made me quit doing this for a long time. So when you enter my neighborhood, the road makes a T-shaped intersection. Go left and you'll continue down the neighborhood. Go right and it will be my house at a dead end. The front of my house is just woods. Go into these woods, and the local elementary school has a trail that goes through hills, creeks, tunnels, and the woods themselves. When I discovered this during lunch, my excitement was at an all-time high. This is what I've been looking for. But for some reason, in my 12-year-old state, going at night sounded like the perfect idea. So on a clear Saturday night, I headed out the door to explore the trail. With a small flashlight and a bottle of water, I was prepared for the night. The crickets chirping, deer crunching in the leaves, bats flying in the sky. Halfway through the trail, I hear crunching heading towards me. For the first few seconds, I thought it was deer heading towards me. But wait, why does it sound like 2 steps instead of 4? Suddenly the realization hits me. Those are human crunches. Instinct kicks in. I turn off the light and jump into the ditch. Cupping my hands to my mouth, I try my best to slow down my breathing. The crunches get really close now. A large silhouette of a man gets within 15 feet in front of me. He stops and listens, looking around. He's listening for me. The guy is looking around, listening for me. "Shit," I hear him say. For 10 minutes, he just listens and mutters words I can't understand. Finally, he crouches slightly and ever so creepily and starts sneaking in the direction he came from. Tears are now streaming down my face, but the sounds don't come out. I can't, or else he will hear me. The crunches become silent now, but fear has me frozen in place. For about an hour, crickets chirping was the only sound heard. Finally, I book it back towards the house. Looking in all directions, I'm making sure whoever that is chasing me is not following behind me. But all of a sudden, a dark shadow jumps in front. I scream like a little girl, but thank God, it's a deer. I make it back to the house, heart pounding and all.